Today, I'll be speaking about rival interpretations of continent personifications for the Undergraduate Research Center at Occidental College. Oxy owns this beautiful first printed atlas by Ortelius, made in Antwerp, and I have put it on my website, and you may magnify it there. Europe is on top, and on the bottom is a Tupinamba Indian from the coast of Brazil with the severed head of a European. So there clearly is a hierarchy, but Europe is definitely not in control. The figures of Asia and of Africa are larger than of Europe. And it invites you to explore this atlas of the world, the first printed atlas of the world. I think there's several interpretations one can take, and depends on which illustration. And these are 5 historiographical approaches to continent personifications. Europe on the top, as we saw, of a hierarchy of continents. Europe as Christians spreading Christianity, first Catholicism, and then rival Protestant churches joined in with this missionary efforts around the world. Ethnographical observation of people and culture. I would advocate instead that I prefer those images that suggest the humanity in all people. Bethencourt's book on racism suggests that it is Ortelius's title page that influenced the 4 races of Linnaeus in the beginning of the 18th century. So ethnography moves to a racial categorization of humans and racism. And I see this as vying with recognizing humanity. And what was there before Ortelius's atlas? We have the Nuremberg Chronicle, a huge book, an atlas, and on the edge of the world, edge of the water, where possible there's land, we see these strange creatures. My favorite is the one shading his face with this very large foot, and on the bottom right, one that looks very demonic. But this is images beyond the human, and Ortelius finds human beings throughout the known world. So we have co-edited a volume, Bodies and Maps, Early Modern Personifications of the Continents, with Louise Arizzoli, an art historian. And we're now making a second volume, Controversial Monuments, which will go from the 18th to the 21st century. And we've added Marianne Romberg from Vienna, who already has a website on Baroque continent personifications. And we're developing a community of scholars, and they're submitting by next spring. The image of the Black in Western art has this important image, 1556, a woman from Senegal, and the claim that it influenced the image of Africa here. And we do know that Ortelius owned the book in which this image existed. It became a really international vogue. Here we see a costume book produced. This is an insert at the bottom of the title page, which is really very amusing. You can see there's labels for the most naked, Europe, disguised by this ream of cloth, Asia, America, and Africa. And it shows Europeans how to make costumes, some that resemble the actual costumes worn around the world, and some that are quite imaginary. But this ushered in the beginnings of theatrical performances with indigenous people from the Americas, indigenous people from Africa. The Near East is being shown as Asia, but later on with the expeditions to Japan and China, one has Asia that's farther east. In any case, opera develops and has these themes and dances, dance pageants. The largest imagery of the 4 continents is in Würzburg, Germany. Tiepolo's Fresco. At the top of the staircase is an indigenous woman of America with a huge chieftain's headdress. So I think this is a possible origin of that. John Ogilvy, Englishman, who found unicorns wandering around the New World, and he also has a very large-breasted indigenous person, female, wearing a chieftain's hat. So images in books traveled around the known world. In this next volume, we're focusing particularly on 19th, 20th, and 21st centuries, and outside the Musée d'Orsay in Paris are 6 individual sculptures that were commissioned for the 1878 Paris World's Fair. I'm particularly concerned that in the 19th century, colonies of conquered peoples were near these world's fairs, and books have been written calling them human zoos. So research needs to be done on who they were imitating, whether it was a particular model in Paris that was used by the particular artist, or if it was those colonies. Europe looking very much like Athena, Asia having a chignon like ceramics from medieval China, Africa, Americas divided into North and South, and the lowliest stooping, the indigenous of Australia. And the British settlement was going on in Australia then. So when these were commissioned, animals were also commissioned. And when the Trocadero was closed, these statues ended up in a dump in Nantes. And some teenagers were hunting in that dump, hurting the statues of the women and of the animals, and the Musée d'Orsay, in a sense, rescued them. In New York City, in front of the U.S. Customs House, now the Smithsonian Museum for Indigenous People of America, Daniel Chester French did 4 sculptures, and I'm very concerned about this one on the far right, who is a slumbering African. It is my position that this should be removed and displayed in a museum, and a current sculptor, ideally an African woman sculptor, will make a new image for us. I'm inspired by the artist in resident at the Getty Research Institute. He had this small image on the wall, and what you saw in entering the museum was that minstrel toppled, and with a musing white face at the top. Yes, this year we have seen many monuments toppled and others becoming very controversial. But I'll take my stand with this 2016 float, Women of the World. It represents work on AIDS worldwide to stop that epidemic. And we see a woman doctor, a woman construction worker, a teacher, and behind that is a woman businesswoman around the globe. And wow, I find this a very positive image of the traditional 4 continents shown at World's Fairs. So curators and historians today consider the challenges of presenting difficult objects. One, which the Commission in New York has decided is no longer going to be on display in front of the Natural History Museum. The Equestrian Theater Roosevelt with 2 hunters, an Indigenous American and an African. So when Oxy Senior Psychology and History major Gus Grunow asked me for a summer research project, I showed him this image. He's taken his own path, as I encourage students to explore the visual expression of ideas in rare books and objects, and students to consider rival interpretations and to interpret for themselves. This is Gus Grunow's plan for this summer. I argue that Roosevelt's belief in eugenics, an ideology represented in the statue's composition, and his conservation work are intertwined, calling for a reckoning on the part of the museum instead of a separation of the 2 ideologies. I look forward to the results of his research and of my colleagues who will be submitting articles for the controversial monuments. Thank you.